Welcome to the Fit Bridge, a podcast connecting you to conversations that help bridge you to success within the health and fitness industry. Hi, friends. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Fit Bridge podcast. I'm your host, RC Hahn. And after listening to today's conversation, I guarantee you are going to be ignited with the next level inspiration and this burning passion to find your purpose and to use that purpose to positively impact the lives of others. And we're going to provide you with the tools to do just that. You're going to leave here feeling confident, capable, and able to achieve and overcome any obstacle that comes your way. And I love that for you. Now, I have the pleasure of calling our guest one of my dear friends, but if you're not familiar with his story, well, buckle up because it's one for the books. I only have so much time on this episode, so I encourage you afterwards to tap in to his episode on Netflix where he has a full season really diving in and sharing his story. It's beautiful. I'm at a loss for words, which is rare for me. But who am I talking about? I'm talking about my man, Mr. Wesley Hamilton, joining us today. Wesley is the founder of Disabled But Not Really. During this conversation, we're going to really challenge the way that we view disabilities and how we're approaching adaptive fitness in our industry. He's a father, a professional CrossFit athlete, and a world-renowned motivational speaker, gracing the stages both virtually and in person, sharing his testimony and providing resources of health and fitness for all to achieve the benefits that it brings. I'm grateful that you're here today, and I hope you take something away from this episode. Let's get started. My man, Wesley, I am so excited for this conversation today. I've wanted to have you on the podcast since the day we started. I want to backtrack just a bit and tell everyone the moment I met you, you came into the gym I was working at, and I think the whole room just like lit up. Like there was like lights coming off of you or something. And you were in the lobby and I was like, who is that human? I need to know them. I want to know that person. And so grateful to have had the opportunity to meet you and watch all of the incredible things you're doing in the space and just motivating others. So thank you for bringing your sunshine on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's truly an honor. And yes, you have a ray of sunshine when, you come into a room too. So I think it was just that mutual level of energy that we just started to see. And yeah, now look where we're at. So
I love it. So watch out, people. You might want to just listen and not watch the video of this. You may be blinded from our lights that are. But I know I'm super familiar, with your journey and your story. But for those of whom are not, could you give us kind of a snapshot of the Wesley Hamilton journey and then kind of segue into, your foundation and what that encompasses?
Yeah, of course, like I'm always a person that when I share my story, I found a way to share it in, I wouldn't say so non-traumatic in a sense. Like, so I don't want, like, of course, like I have this journey and everybody that's listening, just get ready, tie up your shoes a little bit and hold on to your wheels if you live my lifestyle. So, but all to say, if you ever feel like you want me to go more in depth, just dig with me. Cause like, yeah.
Oh, I'll poke. I'll poke. Okay, so imagine nobody's done their homework. They didn't listen to the intro, like the 30-second. Who is Wesley? What is Disabled But Not Really?
Oh, that's good. Wesley Hamilton. I am a philanthropist, an entrepreneur. I full-time father, athlete, model. And the way I like to really define myself now is I'm a student of life. I am a learner, a giver, a provider, an educator, and an inspiration that is geared to influence and change.
Spot on. Yes, you are all of those things. Talk to us about disabled, but not really, and what your current initiatives are, where your focus is, with that organization.
Yeah. So in order to like get the feel of disabled, but not really, you have to truly understand me. And um, I acquired a disability at the age of 24. So before that, I referenced myself as being disabled mentally before I ever became disabled physically. And the reason why my organization serves not just those with physical limitations, but those that are limited mentally just due to circumstance. And just growing up as an African-American male in Kansas City, Missouri, just like most cities, our city was big on redlining, and there was just a lot of opportunities and resources that was never provided to the community that I was brought up in. So I lacked ambition and determination to be more than my environment. I was a product of it, and to simplify what that would mean to me is that I was okay with being dead or in jail by the age of 21. So my lifestyle prior to my injury was really focused on having a negative mindset, living just in the moment because I didn't really have a future or a vision for the future. And then accepting really just the lack of. And so I didn't die. I didn't go to prison or anything like that. What happened was I was shot multiple times in my abdomen. It was after a verbal altercation. The person that shot me was someone I had never knew a day in my life, but they were brought to the situation based on how the situation played out. So I like to really add some accountability here and always say like my actions and emotions played a part in that situation all around. So just so people can understand, this is not a blame game or a victim conversation. This is someone that took accountability and took control of their life. So acquiring my disability in that situation, I didn't have really knowledge of what disability was, or even like what that community really had it. And so I was foreign to it. And society is changing their lens when it comes to disability, but this was 2012 when I acquired mine, and the lens hadn't shifted. So it was very debilitating. And the moment people knew something changed physically with you, they just put your limitations on everything. So because I'm physically limited, I was mentally limited. I was limited to education now, jobs, whatever. Like I really got the mentality to collect a check and just deal with life. Like I was just going to live again in a moment. Like I became a product of this environment. And because this environment was based on societal's lens of like limitation, it was debilitating. So I'm 10 years in my injury now, but just to kind of fast forward a little bit, the first 3 or 4 years was very hard. I felt very defeated. I felt like there was no hope. Now I'm a Black man with a disability. So not only am I dealing with the discrimination or the limitations of how society sees disability, I'm also dealing with the intersection of being a Black man, and even how I acquired my disability that lacked the resources for people to help me succeed. And so I went through about 6 surgeries. I had ended up 2 years of bed rest, 21 hours a day. And but as I shared in my intro, like I'm a father, and I had just got sole custody of my daughter before my injury. And that really just pushed me to kind of find a lot of strength. And over time of me trying to find the strength, over time of like trying to figure out where hope was going to come from, my daughter ended up speaking life into me. I share this all the time. I was just on a hospital bed. And again, like I'm smiling, like whether you're listening or you're watching, like you can probably feel the energy. Like even me sharing my story is full of like excitement, even though it has a lot of trauma and ups and downs. But I was getting in my hospital bed, getting out of my hospital bed, and my daughter looked at me and she referenced my wheelchair as a Superman chair. She's like, "Oh, Daddy, you know, you're getting in your Superman chair." And it was that moment that I knew that I had more strength than what I was seeing. And it took this little girl to speak that into me. And so I started doing things where I practiced nutrition more. I went to a local community college here in, it was Johnson County Community College, took up a dietitian course. So I started to educate myself on food, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the nutrition aspect of wellness. Because I was physically limited and never worked out or did any type of activity prior. I didn't think, oh, well, let me go to the gym. And the limitations of my disability made people think that I couldn't really progress in the gym. So food was one of those things. Let me get healthy. Let me get off of bed rest. And within like a year's time of me really trying to change, I had my last surgery January 2015. So just kind of look, 3 years later, I was 100 pounds lighter. So just from eating right, again, like I would go to outpatient rehab and do a little bit of physical activity, but it was not long because I was on 21 hours a day bed rest. I can only get out 3 hours a day. And I had lost 100 pounds, you know, and I couldn't even lose weight when I was walking. You know, like I had literally embodied the term big boned it. Like my whole life, I was like, all right, I'm big boned it. This is a wrap. I'm only 5'4". I always say like 5'5" on a good day, but I was always a big guy. You know, I feel like I'm a handsome gentleman. So being a big guy and handsome didn't bother me. I still felt like I had something going for myself. But it didn't, but lack of acceptance of really like having the ability to change, you know, even though it was difficult from my community, there wasn't really many gyms in my community. You know, it was what they reference as a food desert. So not a lot of healthy food stores. So I think me making the excuse of what wasn't around me made me accept the things that really wasn't a reality for me. And then when I changed, I was determined now because I'm in a wheelchair, and being big in a wheelchair made me feel uncomfortable. I didn't care about how good I looked. I was like, now I'm really feeling uncomfortable. And the lens from other people made me feel uncomfortable. Everybody else made me feel like I was less than. And it was just normally just how I was seen. And so losing this weight, I knew I was disabled, but not really. I remember like just hashtagging that while I was still in the hospital bed. Like, yes, I'm disabled, but I had lost weight. And like I hadn't heard of the story of a guy paralyzed 200 plus pounds and lose 100 pounds. Like I hadn't heard that story. So I was like, you know, this is something that's different. And I remember even like it just sparked a fire under me to know that like you know, my daughter spoke this life into me, and I was determined to create change that would change the trajectory of my life. And I did that just by eating better. And what I didn't understand was that me eating the right foods started to change the way I was thinking. And so that dark cloud in my mind became clear, and I became more elevated to not only educate myself, but be more focused on entering the unknown instead of constantly being in my comfort zone. And so disabled but not really was more like, yeah, I'm gonna take ownership of my disability based on society's perspective. But now everything that I do after that, well, I'm creating that history. I'm creating that representation, because watching people be so amazed at the transformation I had made, but these were people that were supposed to have been helping me make a transformation. They didn't know the blueprint, and I had created it myself. And so when I hashtag disabled, when I really, it was just a lot of positive feedback. And I, you know, now again, I'm from the streets, and I'm from like this lifestyle. So I had maybe an entrepreneur mindset, bad habits, right? And so I think this was like something where I'm like, oh, I want to serve. I was in the hospital bed and I came up with the name, and all I could think of was helping more people with disabilities, especially that were in my position, become more active and healthy, because I felt good and I wanted more people to feel this good. And I knew that I was debilitated by my own perception, because for 24 years of my life, the way I had seen people with disabilities that I could mirror, in a sense, were defeated. They were dealing with some type of health complications that I faced. They was dealing with obesity that I faced. And so me being able to elevate that, I was just like, man, I gotta serve, I gotta do something. And I had 6 weeks in a hospital bed to heal properly. And I created Disabled But Not Really There. I registered it from the state. I really got active. My very first book I ever read was called as an adult. It was How to Start a Nonprofit. My whole goal wasn't about, oh man, I need to get back to work, I need to go do this, it was like I had did something that I had never visually seen, and now I want to go and serve so many others.
Yeah, that is such an incredible story. I mean, do we see why I had to have you on this podcast? I mean, come on. I feel like every time I pop on your IG story or something, you're doing some incredible feat of I don't know how you do it all, but so many people are grateful that you do. What kind of services does Disabled But Not Really provide? How can others get involved with that? And chat with us a little bit about that.
No, absolutely. So over the time, after, okay, so Disabled Not Really is really based on experience. It's based on my own personal experience of how I was able to transition and change my life, and the things that I'm doing within my life now. It's like I'm using my organization to open a door for people that have never had a door open for them. And so as I grow, my organization grows, our impact grows, and the things that we do within the disabled community will constantly grow. So once I got out the hospital and established Disabled But Not Really, I didn't know the direction. I just knew I wanted to help people. And of course, the first part of the direction was just healthy food, healthy eating. Then the shift happened where, because I got smaller, I became an adaptive athlete. I started competing in CrossFit and bodybuilding. I did it for about 3 years. So as I'm competing in this, I started to see the value that fitness did for people with disabilities. I knew that most gyms don't really provide confidence when you come into a space, especially when a lot of trainers are unknown. So they're basing their perspectives on what they know outside of the job field. So this was something that was debilitating, but I did find it freeing for me to go into these spaces and see all these other people with disabilities really pushing themselves. So I knew I wasn't alone, right? And so I came back and I took this and I said, okay, well, how can we impact individuals here in Kansas City? So of course we wanted to provide resources. So one of our biggest things is going out, finding all the resources that really help people with disabilities become more independent. And so, and that is something that anybody can get and utilize via website anytime, any day, right? And we keep them updated, because even with services, there are just times when people can't be served. But when you have a resource, there are resources that can help you get to the services that you need. So we try to make sure that's the biggest tool that we have. Outside of that, we host an 8-week program. Due to COVID, we're still trying to, I guess, get back to the amount of programs we were doing in a year. Last year we did one program which was very impactful and powerful, and I'm really excited that we took time to do it. But it's an 8-week program that's based on fitness, nutrition, and mental health. So we go in, we allow you to do about 2 days a week of one-on-one training with a certified trainer, not just in fitness, but also adaptive fitness and things like that. Within this 8 weeks, you also get a nutritional seminar with the registered dietitian. We have a meal prep seminar that you get with another food company. So now you learn the basics of proper meals. And the good thing about people with disabilities is that, teaching them how to meal prep allows them that confidence again to now go in and prep for themselves, because a lot of people are living their lives, and especially people with disabilities are living their lives based on how society thinks that you're supposed to operate. So there's a reason why the term caregiver is so strongly used. It's more or less, I need somebody to take care of me all day. And so we try to teach, well, there could be someone that's providing food, but not knowing the value that certain foods do for you. So when you know the benefit of food for yourself and for your body, here are small ways that you can eat them. Maybe we're teaching them how to do trail mix, right? Or get a rotisserie chicken, and now you can make 4 or 5 different meals. So again, the simple things that maybe require less work when it comes over the stove. And then it's the mental health part. So we do a storytelling aspect. So we do a professional video shoot. We do a professional photo shoot, because just like me, I acquired my disability. I dealt with all this debilitating lack of confidence. I changed my life, and now everybody puts me on TV and on the screen. Nobody asked me, was I confident enough to be on TV or on the screen, right? Like, I was still dealing with some of my things. And so within this program, we make sure that we make our individuals comfortable, because we see success in our program. And if we see success, we need you to see yourself, tell your story the way you want. So now when you go out into the world and you're getting interviewed, you don't feel like you don't know how to be transparent. So that's kind of our last part of our program. Celebrate them with a graduation, and then we move on to our next group. Every individual that graduates become a mentor in some way. We do group classes where we try to bring everybody together. And again, like, I think for we're focused on the fitness, nutrition, mental health, but we keep opening up the doors to other ways to help people with disabilities become independent. Rather it's like fashion shows. You might see some of our
I've seen it. I've seen you. I've seen the shows. I've been there.
Any way that we can collaborate with the city and give people the opportunity to be more inclusive. And again, fitness isn't, for me, even though I became an athlete, fitness wasn't my lifestyle. It wasn't going to be my overarching, like, I mean, I got some great features and some amazing magazines and got a lot of accomplishments, but I think that's where you should strive to do in any field you're in. It's not about, it is about the longevity, but it's also about the impact that you can do while you're there right now within yourself and within your life. And so we try to make sure that people understand that you don't have to come in and think that you need to be a bodybuilder or CrossFitter because we're focused on fitness and nutrition. What we're teaching you is that this is a lifestyle, and it will be something that will help you become whoever you want to be and reach your highest potential. And so we show those other avenues, whether it's modeling, being an athlete, being a business owner. And again, my favorite quote is, experience is the teacher that owes no favors. And I know that the world isn't built for people with disabilities to be in a workforce. So when we talk independence, we're teaching people how to be business owners, how they can be independent, how they can shift the change that they wish to see in the world without giving people power over them, knowing that they have their own perception of them. Society has a big, society still has a job when it comes to accepting disability, as well as accepting the intersections within disability, and then understanding that all disabilities are different. And so that is kind of like the work that we're doing, is making sure that we open that door and not leave it to people that once counted us out.
That was a beautiful quote. And I love the piece that you're really encompassing all of it, right? We've got the nutrition, we know it's a big component, the fitness, which kind of trickles into the mental health because all of those, chemical release and good endorphins that we get when we exercise and move our bodies. And I really mostly love the part about encouraging that you can teach your story, share your story, and be able to impact others. And I think that resonates with every human being. It's every single person has some story that we're put here on earth to live out. And how do we eventually one day, once we're no longer here, what impact did we make and what legacy did we leave? And how many lives could we touch and impact positively from everyone owning their own individual stories? And I think that's my favorite part. Like, yeah, I geeked out on the fitness because that's my wheelhouse, right? But it's just the voice of encouraging every person to embrace who they are, own who they are, and share that to positively help others. And it just dominoes, right? So I can't wait to hear more of the stories, success stories from those who graduate from that program. You spoke a little bit about, within the health clubs, not necessarily being right, this inclusive spot. Can you share a little bit more, enlighten us? We have a lot of operators, gym owners, trainers, right? Equipment production companies that might tune into this podcast. Like, give it to us real, Wesley. Like, what do we need to focus on? What do we need to pay attention to because when I walk through a gym and I'm doing a floor sweep and seeing, oh, great, this gym is put together perfectly for our member base. What I see, what you see is going to be very different. Talk to us. What can we do? Where do we need to apply our focus to make our health clubs more inclusive for everyone?
I mean, you can start with adding an accessible button at your doors, because it's very frustrating to just have to try to swing a door open or have people running in and out, because you know how the gyms are. So people are rushing out or rushing in. So that becomes an issue. Most people, I feel like once you're in the gym, you kind of tunnel vision. So I won't say people are rude, but a lot of people are already dialed into whatever they're trying to do. So sometimes it brings a barrier right before you get through the front door, right? So then the second thing is that when you go into a facility, see, I'm big on a welcoming base. And so this is where it comes into training. Most people hire individuals and there's no inclusive training. There's no training that's based on everybody that comes through the door can be served, no matter if you know how they can be served. You're not the expert in that. Just bring them in the door, welcome them, and then allow them to know that someone can help them further understand how they can be in that space. Like, to me, that is, most people, even I've experienced it, and I can name drop if I wanted to, but I've experienced it where I went into gyms and person that took me around, gave me a membership, took my money, but none of it was really inclusive, right? Like, and so and that's, so it's just starting off with that, like the welcoming factor from the door all the way to the front desk. Like, how welcoming is it? Is the front desk high up? Because then that's not welcoming. That means you didn't think of disability first. It was an afterthought. So that's too. It's like, do you got a high table for a service desk, or is there a lower portion? And so then when I go in, so here's a barrier, and I was going to share this on like my speaking page today. Most gyms are changing this model where cardio equipment is upstairs. One of my things is that most gyms don't really, service their elevators, right? So because they don't service their elevators, sometimes they're not working, right? Like, and so
I could see where that would be a large challenge.
so for me, I'm like, if I ever go through a situation where the elevators aren't working, well, now I don't get my cardio in, because the only cardio that I have that's accessible to me might be upstairs, right? Like, and so that's a barrier a lot of times. It's just, where do you have cardio? Do you have the proper cardio? And is the cardio really serving, or did you just buy something that said, hey, this is for a lot of people? And it's not really for a lot of people.
Right.
So that's
like, you made that decision that it was for a lot of people. Like,
so I would say that's a barrier, cardio. You don't really get a lot of cardio. And frankly, One of my favorite cardio equipment for a person in a wheelchair is called a crank cycle, and it's by Matrix, but Matrix discontinued it. And so now that was the best one. So all the other ones that are coming out, SCI Fit and stuff like that, a lot of people having in their gyms. Well, have you ever just seen a person in a wheelchair use this equipment that you think is very valuable to a person in a wheelchair? Because it's very awkward to use these machines. And so even the people that are developing the machines aren't really conscious, you know, on the disability. So it could serve someone that is a senior citizen that might have limited mobility. But when you have someone like a spinal cord injury that don't have core support, like how is it actually serving them if they have to lean forward to push themselves to use the hand cycle, right? And so, you know, paying attention to the models that are out there, paying attention to the things that are out there, that's just really where you see the value. Adaptive CrossFit is something good to look at a model. How are all these individuals using cardio and doing cardio? How are they doing a lot of functional fitness and a lot of things that people don't see? And then you get to the machines. So most of the machines aren't accessible, and especially everybody that think that it is real cute to buy all this new stuff that's out instead of keeping it the old school way was such more flatter. And I'm thinking of platforms when you're thinking of squat racks and things like that. Now it's this big, huge lip, you know what I mean? So I can't even get up there unless I'm popping a wheelie. Then I have to pop a wheelie to come back down. So even those are things that I think people don't pay attention to. And so, yes, I have a disability, but I also want to get into the chest press. I also want to be able to get into, like, you know, a lat pull down or something like that. I don't want to just be doing barbell curls or dumbbell curls. Like, you see my arms,
I see you. Tap into the video for that shot, y'all. Biceps are popping.
But the whole thing is, why is my arm so big? Because I don't get access to all the other machines. So I'm constantly doing same movements in a sense, because I do want to be active and I don't want to make excuses, but at the same time, these things are becoming barriers for me for my overall wellness. And so as much as I say things are happening, in order to create change, you have to change your model. And that means you have to change your environment. And most people ain't ready to create that change. Most people ain't ready to create an area that really speaks to disability, where it's really serving disability. Like, that's just a real thing. Like, most people aren't doing that because it becomes like swimming pools. Sometimes you got pools with lifts on them, but then there are gyms that don't even consider putting a lift, or the lift is in a jacuzzi. I don't want to just be in a hot tub now. But again, the barrier is that people think when you think of accessibility, you are serving one group, and that's senior citizens. We see a majority within the gyms, and we see that, you know, most seniors want to be active. But when you think of accessibility, you should think of disability too. Now, I'm proud that you're serving seniors, but if you had the mindset that it's not if, but when we will all have a disability, then that means that your environment would be fully inclusive with the universal design that speaks and serves everybody. It takes a little bit of market research. Can't say that you're doing market research to create an amazing system and you're not including everybody. That research even speaks to the inner cities and the underserved communities that are constantly being used in conversations, but the facilities aren't being built in the communities, right? So again, how are you getting these people to your facility outside of the communication you're using that says you're getting them to your facility? You can say that you're welcoming to us, but how are we being welcomed? How are we being brought there, right? So again, like, all of that really, either it's like I'm coming where I'm celebrated. I go where I'm not tolerated. I go where I'm celebrated, right? Like, go where, you know how it is the other way around. But that's what it is when I think of, you know, facilities and gyms. And again, I go in to make people aware that there is individuals like me, right? But when the culture isn't good, every individual that comes into a gym becomes inspiring, right? So it's kind of like, as soon as they get in there, they're inspiring. It'd be their first time going in the gym. Oh man. So the society's perspective, society projects these things where now, yes, it could be inspirational to you to see somebody that you thought was less than come in and doing some shit that you do, right? But at the same time, I came in thinking like, listen, I'm trying to push myself the same way you are. So if you don't want people coming to you every 5 seconds saying you inspiring, damn it, leave a person with a disability alone when they're pushing themselves, and they don't, not only are they dealing with the things that they have to deal with physically, they're also dealing with society's barriers. They're dealing with your perception, even your view of how you see them right now. You got to come over and speak to them. I just think but listen,
don't interrupt anyone in the gym. That's the point, right? Don't interrupt people's workouts.
I just seen a podcast where it was an individual, and he's a high, like, I've listened to this guy speak on a podcast 1,000 times, right? And I mean, motivational speaker, all this. I probably do one of those reels where I'm like side by side because I'm fired up.
Yeah.
But he just shared a story of how he seen a woman with a disability in a wheelchair come, like, roll past his gym. And he talked about how inspiring it was. And he talked about her limitations. Oh, this woman could probably only lift 2 pounds on her weight. This woman could do, like, and she was overweight. And as much as he felt sorry for her, he was inspired by her. And he had to let her know that. But it was like, to me, it was like, why should any of that matter if you just saw that person as human first? Like, just because we use a mobility device don't mean nothing. Like, I always look at people that look down on me and I'm like, bro, I could have taught you so much about life, but you sat there and limited me by my limitations, right? You saw less in me, so you couldn't even think that I could provide you more, right? And so when I think about the gym, that welcoming factor, the equipment, like, if there's inclusivity, now let me deal with the challenge of transferring. Like, that's nobody's job, but at least make the machines accessible. Make, if you have all these rigs and all these weights, you couldn't allow a corner to speak to disability. You couldn't go and find what equipment is out there, because Disabled But Not Really has it all in our spaces. Right? So again, like, it's there. It's not hard at a heavy cost. It's just that, again, when you think one way about a group of people, that's as far as you serve them. That's how I end it. That's how we're going to end it on that.
Drop that mic. I just want to say, when I say you're inspiring, I've been in the gym with you and you do crazy stuff. Like, I've watched you compete at a professional athletic level, and you're doing stuff nobody's doing. I can't climb a rope, bro. I can't do it. So I'm like, well, within kind of that inspiration and motivation and such, is like, where do you find your motivation? All right. I mean, I think that's a question everyone asks everyone, kind of, right? When they see people succeeding in life, it's like, I've heard all sides of it where it's like, my thought is motivation's bullshit and it's just about discipline. But there's also our ways, the things in our mind that we wake up, we tell ourselves, or they're like morning mantras that you do. Is there some thought that's always front of mind, or some goal you're going to, like, where do you find this motivation to keep going and just keeping on? And you're a busy man. Like, I don't know if we need to rewind to hear about everything you're doing in a day. Like, where do you find the motivation to wake up at, I see your timestamps, man. You wake up at like 4 a.m. Like, where do you find the motivation to do all of this?
I mean, when you face death, in a sense, you realize how short life is. And you realize the only thing we have is time. That's the value. But once the day passes, we lose that time. And if we don't know so far what our future holds, we should be focused on the time that we have and how much we can find value in it. So when I think about my motivation, like, I'm motivated by the adversity I have to face daily. I wake up every day knowing my legs don't work. Knowing that I have a spinal cord injury means that I deal with a lot of situations and complications that people don't visually see. I think that's my biggest thing. Like, I get to overcome me when I wake up in the morning. I get to overcome everything that will drain me, defeat me, bring me down. Like, I accept all of those things in the morning. Today isn't going to be perfect. Today is going to be a day of experiences and lessons, right? Like, and that's my student of life kind of motto. And I think that's why I become motivated. Now I have my ups and downs, and sometimes I don't have the strength to get out. But even when I don't have the strength to get outside, I'm in front of the computer. I'm just really grinding, because I just know that there's value in being determined and pushing yourself to a goal. But then I also know that like my life and everything that I do, it's what I love to do. So there's never a day that I feel like I'm working. So I wake up early to love on me first. I always tell people that. So if you see me at 4 a.m., I'm not making an excuse to do the exercise, eat the first good meal of the day, respond back to emails if I need to before I get overwhelmed with work. But read my book, making sure I get an hour in with the book, listen to a podcast. I spend at least 2 hours in my morning, 1 hour reading a book or listening to an audio book and then a podcast. And so I'm always trying to grow every day. And I think like me being able to dial in and listen to other people's stories motivate me, because I get to hear adversity constantly, because every day I'm growing. So you grow by learning, and understanding, and you can't understand in a known place. So every day I'm motivated to enter the unknown, right? Because I know that that's where growth is. That's where comfort becomes, because you find comfort in comfortable settings, right? And so I'm motivated. And then outside of that, like I think my inspiration and motivation also comes from the people I listen to. So those stories, those authors, those people, those are my mentors. Those are the people that I dial back into. I might listen to that podcast, a certain podcast every morning just to get a certain message, And so again, like just hearing that everybody has some type of adversity they're facing in life, and me having that understanding every day I wake up. And most people think they know your story until you tell it yourself. Right. So most people think they know your story until you tell it yourself. I'm like, again, it's the 8 Mile. If you ever remember the 8 Mile, like, Eminem was rapping during the rap battles. He lost every battle until at the end he spoke his truth.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, it's like, if I live my truth every day, I can be motivated. Only way I'm not motivated is when I'm putting a mask on and I can't be me.
Wisdom. I'll call you Wisdom Wesley from now on. That's your new handle. Can we add that hashtag? Hashtag Wesley Wisdoms. I'm using it. Oh, well, to stay motivated to do all these things, I know we're both keepers of our peace, right? I think that's an important part of any success is how do you protect your peace? So that would be my question to you is, how do you protect your space and your place and your mental health and your emotional wellness and blocking out the bad energy, right? How do you protect your peace in all of this chaos of the world?
Honestly, it's just boundaries. I take pride in telling people I'm an introvert. People are like, "Oh no, you're not an introvert. You always out. You're speaking to thousands of people." And but that's my boundary. I know when I have that time to be that extrovert, but on most days I like to be to myself, because that brings me peace. Me learning every day. I can't be distracted by negativity if I have a book and I'm excited about what I'm reading within that book, but I need the peace around me so that I can embrace that. And sometimes it's not being around four walls, it's being around water, it's being around, nature, the sounds of birds, and watching, like, embracing life itself. So to me, I just focused on my introverted ways. And I think that, and I take honor and pride in that, so that I can always give myself the ability to hone into my peace. And my boundary is more or less, I don't allow negativity to be around me. Like, I've created enough within me to see negativity before I let it enter me or my space. And then I allow my family and friends to know what I'm not going to accept or what I don't want. And, and that's the ability also to take the mask off and be the true you is that I will leave a space when it's not bringing me peace. I leave a meeting when it doesn't serve me well. I don't have to be there because I know I bring value, but I can't bring the value. I can't be effective with the value I'm bringing if my peace is messed with. And I take so much honor and peace within myself that's what I want around me. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I think within that is, like you said, communication. And it's like, if say something. If you don't like it, if you're giving me bad energy, you can leave, right? You can leave the meeting, you can leave the space. It's okay to say no. It's
Yeah.
okay if you need that time at home. And especially, in our livelihoods, there's a lot of networking. It's in our job descriptions to be very publicly facing, be very engaging with a lot of people. And that can become very exhausting. It's like, how do you find that balance? And that comes with that boundary you said of, learn how to say no. I'm sure we've both read a lot of those different books and listened to the audio books about the power of no, and setting those boundaries and communicating when something doesn't sit well with you. I definitely resonate with that. And I think it's the terms, and it's either an omnivert or an amnivert. I don't know if it's O or A. I'm going to have to re-Google that. Do you know which one it is that people like us are? Okay, we're going to Google it because it's those of whom can be the extrovert in the sense of necessity, but to their core, we recharge our extroverted batteries by being alone. And I think that's really surprising to people. They're like, oh, you must be just wired and happy all the time. I'm like, actually, I love nothing more than sitting in complete silence and solitude with nobody around. Like, they're like, but you're so friendly. I'm like, you can be both. Like,
like, yeah, you don't have to be an introvert and be rude, right? Like,
right.
maybe because you don't want to be bothered. But then when you're an extrovert, like, you don't have to be so, like, to me, like, I just have an on and off switch. I could be quiet all the way until I get to the door, and then boom, it's time to give you my energy. But all in the time to there, I'm meditating to make sure that I'm
charging
okay.
my energy up by being alone. And then have you ever left a space in a room and you're just like, oh God, like, I just need to be alone. Like, that was a lot of human energy to absorb. You're just absorbing every other person's aura a little bit, and whew,
but I
refresh.
think that's the power of like knowing you, though. Because then you know the things that really affect you and how you want to react to those things. Like, until you know you'll be in a room that's energy draining, and you'll go home and you feel
Off.
like, yeah,
you don't know why.
And you're upset about the day. It wasn't as progressive, even though it was like, and when you know you, it's like, oh, I'm good with this. Nope, that's not cool with me. Like, you can even hear it in people's voice as they're talking to you. And you're like, you know what? Nope, this doesn't even bring me comfort or peace right now. I'm good. Sounds good, but yeah, it's not worth me dealing with it at that time, and so again, like, I like you said, like, I do value peace, I do value positive souls, I value love, and I feel like if people love freely, then they always bring you peace, because love is rooted in empathy too. And so that's, for me, I give peace because I understand that people's lives don't have to be perfect for me to love them. And so I try to make sure that, the surroundings around me is rooted in love, empathy, and creates peace, because there's understanding.
Yeah, you definitely achieve that. I've never felt anything but just over adoring love when I'm in your presence. And it's right back at you. Definitely take that away, folks, as that knowing thyself is. We're going to stamp that one on the timestamp as a wisdom. Another hashtag Wesley wisdom moment is know thyself. That's a big key. Well, within that, I want to transition. Speaking of kind of like keys and little wisdom nuggets that we're dropping left and right here on the FitBridge podcast, we always ask every guest to please provide your 3 fiber foundation words. These can be any word at all that you'd like. And we just consider these the pillars of success in any dimension of life. life, right? I know you're passionate and all of the spectrum, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, every realm. So talk to us. If you could give us 3 words to add to our word bank, what are those words going to be and why?
No, absolutely. I go with the 3 C's.
Okay.
Disability pillars are 3 C's as courage, confidence, and competence. And
Courage, confidence, and competence.
yep. And so I feel like you have to have courage to get into anything, to be successful, to step outside your box, to even be you. You have to have the courage. Well, once you surpass and you reach, you take the courage and you go do the things you didn't think you could do. You break and overcome that fear, create that resilience. But now you have confidence. But in order to allow that confidence to really create the reality you envision, you have to now be consistent and create that competence, right? Like, and so for me, it's like, okay, how do you become competent? Well, you have to have that courage and confidence that leads to your competence, that now it becomes something that is a lifestyle, right? Regardless of what you're doing, your success is your life, right? Like you live every day to be successful. You can have milestones and goals to get there, but you should be confident enough to have the courage to see that just through your competence that you can have and bring whatever you want in life. And so courage, confidence, and competence is what I share.
That was awesome. Do not tell me you just like rattled that off the top of your head, man. I love that. Taking it, applying it. Thank you for providing it. I'm running with those 3 C's consciously throughout the rest of my day. I needed that word, so appreciate it. Now, I could talk to you for forever. This could be the world's longest podcast episode because I always enjoy our time together. But I know we got to wrap it up at some point. So I want to make sure I ask the question for our audience. What do you wish you would have had known? Like, leave us with the final hashtag Wesley Wisdom moment. And what do you wish you would have had known that you know now that we all can skip a step in and just apply the wisdom here today?
Oh, so that's a good question. And I'm going to go off of the way it just hit me. So
Oh God, I don't know to be scared or excited. I don't know what to have to hit us with it, Wes.
No, like, okay, what would I wish that I've known? I think the only thing that I wish that I would have known is that loving myself first would have brought me so much value. Now, what I would say is the process for me to get that understanding to love myself is what brought me value. So when I think about it, like I can provide that tip, but what I would say is that don't skip the steps, because the steps allow you to understand and fall in love with the process that got you to where you are supposed to and destined to go. Your plan in life is already set for you. You have to move forward to it. Everything that you visualize in the future is sitting there, but what work are you applying to get there, right? And so again, like loving yourself and trusting yourself to get there is a step, but you have to go through the moments that you didn't trust yourself to understand why it's important to trust yourself. You have to know what it feels like not to love yourself to understand why it's important to love yourself. Like, and so again, like everything has a step, but you cannot miss it. You can't surpass a step because it's so important to learn that lesson, because that lesson frees you in life. And so want true freedom, then embody the process. You want quick freedom, or maybe there's a process that you can move forward to, right? Like, and so, but true freedom is embodying the process because you've shaped all the experiences and all the lessons, and that's what created your reality.
Beautiful. Writing that one down as well. Oh, I see. Is there any last thing, I'll just kind of turn the mic over to you. Anything we didn't chat about yet, or, final remarks that you want to share with our audience today before we bounce off?
I mean, there's a lot that, we could have talked about. I think, of course, just leveraging and letting people know, about the story, about the organization. But I want people to understand that where you are in life is not where you have to stay. And even the milestones and accomplishments you make, you should see further past them. Like, I celebrate all my small wins, but I know that the larger goal is something bigger. And the biggest thing is that service, like, none of my success came if I didn't serve first. And I just want people to not see the success as much as they can focus on the service. Like, give to others, of the things that brought you value. So my last words would be, find the things that you're passionate about and then serve others with that.
Yes.
That becomes your purpose. And when it becomes your purpose, you never will fall out of funk over it, because now you have fell in love with the process that and the things that you're passionate about. And because you're serving others with the things you're passionate about, you will always love what you do. And in life, we should always love what we do.
Couldn't agree with you more. Right? I've never worked a day in my life or part of that blessed group. Thought when you find what you love, find your passion, like you said, and that'll lead to your purpose. And then you just give it away. I actually think of that quote, you make a living by what you get, but a life by what you give. And
Yes.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm trying to have a life. I'm trying to have a good life. And it just the universal energies. I mean, you and I have seen it in truth live out. But for those of whom maybe have not encountered it, like, we are begging you right now to just live out your purpose in its truest form. And when you give to others, the universe always gives back, even when you don't know how. You're like, I'm going to give my last dollar over here that I needed to eat. Somehow, when you do the right thing, the world gives you $5 back for your $1. Like, it just, I don't know. I don't understand the universe, but it's how the universe works, people. So thank you for reiterating that beautiful message. I'm so grateful that you took the time to chat with us, Wes. It is always a pleasure to see that smiling face. I need to end up in the same place, in the same city with you again at the same time. We can get a workout in together, can hang. So we'll make sure and tag all of your handles and Disabled But Not Really, so everyone can learn more about all the incredible work you're doing in the space. I'm sure you have 15 other speaking engagements to get to and to motivate the world. But thank you so much for taking the time, Wes. And I know we'll chat again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed something from today's conversation, let us know by giving this episode a like, chatting in the comments, and sharing it with your friends. We always love to hear from you, so you can send email messages to podcast@fibr.fit and connect with us on Instagram @FitBridge Podcast for even more exclusive content. Special thanks to our friends at Winner Productions for all things audio and post edits. And on behalf of the entire staff here at Fiber, it's been my absolute pleasure helping bridge community to opportunity. Until next time, make sure you click that subscribe button for more episodes and go download the Fiber app today for all of your health and fitness industry needs.